All right. I'm here with a buddy of mine, Lamberto Maturin, and we were at Officer Candidate School together now a while ago. Thank you for being on the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, Blake. It's always great to talk to you.
Well, the feeling's mutual. I'd like to start off by, if you could give us a little bit of background on yourself, where you're from, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Cool, man. As you mentioned, Lamberto Maturin. I'm originally from Panama City, Panama. Came to the U.S. when I was about 8 years old. My mom married my stepdad, who happened to be in the Air Force at the time, stationed in Panama. They met, fell in love. I was part of the deal, and that's how I came to the U.S. Started off in Texas, moved to Florida. That's where actually I enlisted out of. Graduated high school and enlisted in Tampa, Florida. Joined the Marine Corps Reserves. Eventually went on to the active reserve program. Got my degree while I was active duty. Put in a package to become an officer. Got selected
What
in 2007.
what drew
Go
you
ahead.
into the Marine Corps where you had, I guess your stepfather was Air Force. What are the options there? Like why the Marine Corps?
Funny story, which I tell all the time, especially to my Marines. So I actually did want to join the Air Force. I want to join the Air Force Reserve because my mom kept hounding me about going to college. And even though I didn't want to, but I just wanted her to get off my back. So I looked at my options. My stepdad retired in Tampa out of McDale Air Force Base. We lived 10 minutes from the base. I was like, hey, Air Force Reserve, perfect. Set up an appointment, went to talk to the recruiter. He didn't show up. But guess who did show up?
Yeah.
Lifted cherry red F-150, dip in his mouth. Hey, man, what are you doing? Waiting for the Air Force recruiter. Hey, come wait in my office. That was the end of it. And he's like, he asked me why I wanted
Yeah.
to, join the Air Force. And I told him, he's like, hey, the Marines got all that and more. And I was like, okay.
Yep.
And yeah, that's pretty much why I joined the Marine Corps instead of the Air Force. But looking back on it, obviously one of the best decisions of my life.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I was just that's I
No,
think
no,
that's
no, you're good.
key.
Yeah.
It's
No,
circumstance why I think, there's a calling that I think that maybe, I think now having hindsight, I look back, when you're in, you're just like, hey, nobody can fucking talk shit about the Marine Corps except for Marines, you know?
pretty much, man. Pretty much.
But so funny enough is like I was gonna go into the Air Force to be a pilot, and you know I was a history major in college, and my grades weren't that good, and they're like, "Nah, sorry, Blake." And then I went to the Marines office, they're like, "Blake, come on in." So
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, yeah,
That's
continue.
probably one of the best decisions you've ever made, huh? So,
Yeah, it is, and I think looking back, it is, when you get out, it has tempered me to handle uncertainty, chaos, and endure to keep doing that with my family
absolutely.
now and business and life. So it is like you look back and yeah, how much did it suck? It's like yeah, it was really difficult. And I think you have those moments in your time, and especially the Marine Corps where those are there, and then afterwards, when if you live and you have your health and body and mind enough, then you're like, got it. So
That's
yeah,
it, brother. But yeah, 2007, that's when we met.
yep,
Started September of 2007. What were they? Charlie 3. Now
yep,
retired Master Guns Blaine, our
yeah.
sergeant instructor.
I'm
And
gonna have
yeah,
him
we
on here, dude.
commissioned.
He was supposed to be on, and because I want to. I don't know who's like what a better in because you have a pretty good relationship with him as well. And it's like, man, that guy. I think he formed like thousands of young minds, dude, and just like
Absolutely.
fuck, dude, one of the most
Absolutely.
unique leaders ever, and he got to like be between boot camp and then OCS and the Marine Corps, dude. I don't know how many people's
Yeah.
psyches and minds he got to put an impression on, but damn, bro, fucking what
Yeah,
an
exactly.
incredible person.
He's amazing. He's like my brother from another mother. I mean,
Yep.
anytime I need encouragement, inspiration, I know who to call. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was And that was a great group of guys that, we went to OCS with. And yeah, commissioned in November, right? November 30th,
Yep.
07. Chose to be an administrator at TBS. I was an administrator on the enlisted side as well for 8 years. It's what I knew. It's what I loved. So I chose to be an adjutant.
Yeah.
Nobody else wanted to be one. So it was pretty much guaranteed to get it.
S-
And then,
So,
yeah.
on that note, I want to like just share a story from OCS of my first experience with you at OCS. And because I think that because
Okay.
you mentioned an adjutant where it's admin, and I think I didn't know that at the time. We're all running around right in the beginning of OCS, and I think it's important to note of what we're Marines, but then what you did in the Marine Corps. And so we are within the first week of OCS, you get tasked with being the scribe of our platoon. And again, I'm like I'm hardly knowing what that was, right? But it's like you're handling kind of some of the administration side, but for the whole platoon. It's like a extra job. Like as I looked at it, I didn't fucking want that job. That's
Yes.
a shitload of extra work. So I'm not going to get to sleep, among other things. Like I'm like, please don't fucking pick me, and I didn't, And then so like again, so you're running around there, and so Gunny Blaine, at the time, comes out of the
Right.
office, the squad bay, looks down the row of beds, probably like 20 beds down the squad bay. And he's just like, Scribe, get over here. And then, I'm in my bed doing, or, my rack doing something. And then from down, like, probably like kind of like the end of the squad bay,
Yeah.
you say, I, or I'm trying to, I, Gunner Sergeant, and then you just like intensity, and then just fucking fly down, report in. It's like, Gunner Sergeant Blaine, candidate and Lamberto reporting is ordered. And then I was just like, holy shit, the intensity with that motherfucker there is like, that was, I operate pretty intense, and I'm like, it was like, oh, this is how this is going to be. So the bar of intensity for me was set by you because I was like, this is the bar.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna fucking have to do everything how I do things because I knew that you were prior enlisted, and so you have obviously
Right.
a little bit
Right.
of the game,
Right.
and I'm like, oh, this is how this motherfucker does stuff. This is how I have to do stuff now because I was like, this is the fucking bar, and dude, that is an indelible mark in my mind of because so it's like that's everybody in the Marine Corps is a Marine first, regardless of the job. And so just because I wanted to touch on like, well, what your job after you're a Marine. But I was like, that was it, dude. It's an indelible mark of intensity, and like that's what the Marines are to me, dude. Like you've set that. So I wanted to share because that was I love that story, bro. That runs through my
I,
mind
I,
probably
I
every few
appreciate
months
that.
or something like that. Yeah.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I felt like I had no choice. The first couple of weeks of OCS, although I was, a prior enlisted sergeant of Marines, been in 8 years, right? I came
Yep.
in with the wrong attitude, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I came in cocky, like, what do these college students know, that I don't? And sure enough, like my hubris got the best of me. I failed the weapons handling test, like every Marine and rifleman, right? Like I'm an expert marksman, or and I'm over here like fumbling with my M16, like I'm a freaking training day one recruit, and I couldn't believe it. And then I failed the first history test, so I was on company probation right off the mark. You know what I mean? And I had to humble myself and remember like where I came from, and then look
Right.
to you guys, the non-prior enlisted guys, because remember in the beginning, Gunny Blaine said like by the time that we are done here, all of y'all will be on the same level. It
Right.
doesn't matter whether you're prior enlisted or just a college grad, fresh out of whatever. Like y'all are going to be at the same level. And sure enough, by the time we were done, there was like it was indistinguishable. Like we were all at the same level. And I had to
Yeah.
remind myself, like, I'm starting over, man. And looking up to guys like you and Ryan Ionelli and everyone else, Malloy, my rack mate, Mead, like it was a humbling experience, and it's one that I'll never forget. and then doing peer eval on each other too, and being humble that way, right? When you read what other people think about you,
Yes.
yeah, man, a lot of growth happened during that 10 week
Yeah, it's
period
like when
on my
you
end.
have like an yeah, an unadulterated like almost filter of like what people think of you of like, because
Yeah,
we have that in the Marine Corps at OCS and then at TBS. And
right.
again, that's humbling because you want to do good and you want to basically like Blake's like Smedley Butler, right? Something like that. But that's not the case a lot of the time. You have to like have a thick skin and take it with
Absolutely,
stride. And I think that's
absolutely
something that's like the Marine Corps does well. Some of the things which I do like.
agreed.
But yeah, so continue, please. From I feel like from that point, we're go.
TBS was like the worst 6 months of my career, man. Like, I'm not a field marine. I was an administrator. I'm older. I'm 28 at the time. Like, I was an
Yep.
age waiver, so like I don't want to be a grunt. Because remember in the beginning, like, although you were a pilot, so you already had your air contract, you were good. But when the company commander asked, like, who wants to be infantry, and everyone was like, yeah, like 80% of the new
Right.
lieutenants were like so excited about it, and then halfway that number like dwindled down to maybe like half, and by
Yeah.
the end, people are like, fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except the ones that really wanted to be grunts, and I was
Exactly.
definitely one of the ones that did not. So I was like top of the bottom third when I graduated. I'm just glad it was over. Went to After that, I went to Camp Johnson to admin school, the basic mapper officer course. Got orders of 3-3 in Hawaii, so that was like already a great start.
Cool. Yeah.
I got there and dude, it was great. Iraq, Afghanistan. It was tough mentally on me. That's where I really started realizing how anxious I was and eventually how depressed I was.
Yep.
And the stress that I put upon myself. And that's a journey that I'm still going through to this day. But anyways, Afghanistan was the best 7 months of my career. That was in 2010. Came back, then got orders to the depot here in San Diego. Was a series commander, company commander, and then I was an aide to camp to now Lieutenant General James Bierman, who's Deputy Commandant for Plans and Policies, basically the opposite of the Marine Corps, right? So, great
Yep.
man. Then I went to EWS resident in Quantico for a year. Orders back to San Diego to go to Third Mall. Was a Deputy G1 at Third Mall, sort of Mush, as it's called, OHS1, and then or three, excuse me, and then got selected to be an RSCO. And I was in recruiting for 3 years with the recruiting station in San Diego as a CO. The toughest thing I've done in my 25 years in the Marine Corps, but also the most rewarding thing that I've done by far.
Yeah. I can
Went to
imagine.
Command and Staff College. Yeah, I went to Command and Staff College, got another master's degree there, got orders back to SoCal, and now I'm at First MLG as a G1 for First MLG, and God willing, this is my last duty station, and I got about 2 years, and I'll hang it up after it'll be 27 years at that time, God willing. So my
Good.
career in a nutshell.
All right. So make sure I think I got this right. So you did where you said you're at MCRD San Diego, so you're a series
Mm-hmm.
commander. And so basically that is a job where you are at that is that a you're major in '04, or is it your
So I came there as a first lieutenant, senior first lieutenant. I already
okay.
selected for captain. And yeah, I was a series commander, and then I got company command as a captain.
Okay.
So yeah.
And so basically you're in charge of how many platoons of recruits?
So basically, as a series commander, you have anywhere from 3 to 4, depending on how large the company is. Usually during the summer is we call it JJazz. June,
Yep.
July, August, September. It's when like the big herds, as we call them, come in, and there could be up to 4 platoons per series. But normally it's 3 platoons for a series commander, and obviously as a company commander, you've got anywhere from 6 to 7 platoons that you're in charge of.
So at
About
what's
75
that?
to 90 recruits each.
Okay. What was that experience like of seeing, I feel
Oh,
like what comes to mind is seeing like transformations from fat, sloppy come in to then like be, kind of sharp, leaving, new guy or something like that. What is that like?
That's it, dude. That is exactly it. It's kind of like when we were at OCS, right? We're first like,
Yeah,
what the hell's going on? And by the time we're done, we're like on autopilot. And that's the way it
yeah,
is with these young men and women. They come in as these little nasty civilians that don't know, what the hell's going on and can't even walk, let alone march, right? And by the time they're done, they're walking taller. They look great in uniform. The pride is exuding. They're
yeah,
they're looking sharp and crisp when they're out there marching. Like it's amazing what these drill instructors do, man. Don't miss the job. It was a great experience. The only
yep,
thing I miss is that the drill instructors, man, those men and women depots, if you're not the top 10% when you're going in, you're definitely the top 10% when you're leaving. They're just that good.
yep.
Professionalism, caring, stoicism, leadership. I mean, they've got it.
Cool. Do you have a good story, good, bad, ugly, just anything that you got from there? Anything come to mind? Doesn't have to right now, but later from as a series commander of being seeing something unique or cool or weird. I don't know, anything good.
Dude, every day was something unique, man. And you
Yeah.
have to understand, like, for a lot of these kids, this is the first time they've had structure in their lives, right?
Yeah.
And
What's the
these senior
average
drill
age?
instructors, dude, 17 to 19,
Okay.
usually, you got
Wow.
kids straight out of high school. So,
Got it.
like, they're just like still learning about themselves. They're literally not done growing yet, right? But they're there. They made a commitment to serve, right? So kudos on that. But yeah, these drill instructors, especially the senior drill instructor, for some of these kids is the closest thing they've had to a dad.
Yep. Do the drill
And
instructors
the bonding
get
is
that
impressive.
in the sense of like, hey, they're there to like make these guys, suffer, in a way. But then do they understand like that psychological thing? I feel like we're, Ross Blaine like knew that. And so what do these guys do? Because it's like they're not there to like just destroy them, right? Because they could, right? As the drill instructor, like, right, but I guess like you don't want the drill instructors to get off on that because it's like they're also like the maybe the only father figure type guy that they've ever experienced. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, bro. It's a game, and
Yeah,
they play it well, right? And that's why at the end, during the Crucible, which is a culminating exercise, the drill instructors take off the funny green hat, the campaign cover, they put on their soft cover, and they start the mentorship process. Now you're calling them
yeah,
by their rank instead of sir or ma'am, right? So, and you've got the senior drill instructor whose job is to be that guide, that the dad per se or the mom, right? And then
right.
you got the experienced drill instructor whose job is to teach. He's teaching you drill, how to make your rack, how to fold your camis, whatever it may be, right? And then you got the third hat and the fourth hat, and those are the guys that you hate, right? Because they're the ones that make you play the stupid little games, or they put you on the quarter deck, stuff like that. It's
Yep,
all scripted. It's all the drill. I mean, obviously these kids don't know that, but these drill instructors do, and they play it very well. And by the end, it all coalesces and comes together in this harmony of like just chaos. But then it
right.
transforms you into a Marine, and it's
Yep,
amazing.
yeah.
Lots
Oh,
of great
dude.
stories, man. Like these kids crying, like these kids laughing, like I used to talk to all these kids. Like I was different from everybody else because I would literally talk to them a lot. Walk through the squad bays, talk to them, ask them where they're from, talk, hear their stories, right? And it was amazing. From orphans to like abandoned kids who were, in foster care, like everything under the sun. It's at the depot right now, trying to make something of him or herself, and that's what gives me hope for this country and that our core will
Yeah.
continue for posterity.
Yeah, dude, I feel the same way. And I like specifically about veterans. Like, I think that our veterans and first responders, those are the type of people that are adaptable, anti-fragile, that I think will rebuild our country from where we're at right now of this big divide. those people are who will rebuild us, and that's another, maybe that's another topic. Like hell yeah, because it's soon in a few years you'll be a veteran too. So, but not
Yeah.
right now. Um,
The resiliency
yeah.
is
So that
definitely there with that group, man. Like
yeah.
you're absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, and I think I think in the Marine Corps from OCS to or boot camp is like those experiences leave indelible marks in every Marine's life, period. Like it's just not, it can't not happen. Maybe, but in those friendships from the 10 weeks for boot camp, or and then I believe, or I forgot how many, or in 10 weeks for OCS, that those leave indelible friendships and marks, like just like this friendship right here, dude. So, but yeah, so that I can imagine that time was pretty interesting of walking around where you have Marines literally just like literally snapping, almost breaking themselves off to as the captain walks through a squad base.
Yeah, yeah. It
That
was,
would
it was,
be
it was, it
interesting.
was.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. So then you're even so that you're, I don't know if it was the next job, but it's kind of before that. So when you're actually recruiting and going meeting,
Yeah,
like again, you're in charge. I think that you're in charge of quite a few enlisted guys. If you could tell us about that experience as well.
yeah. As a CO of RS San Diego, I had about 105 total people. 104 Marines, one civilian, and yeah, we had a pretty large area operations. RS San Diego owns, all of San Diego County, and then it goes east to El Centro,
Okay.
and then it goes as north as Moreno Valley. So, and then it has the entire Pacific. So Hawaii, Guam, American Samoa, Okinawa. Um, yeah, we're everywhere in the Pacific, right? So it was a lot of traveling, a lot of time on the road, and then but watching these Marines, and these are sergeants, staff sergeants, gunnery sergeants, going out there every day, busting their ass, talking to these kids, whether they're area canvassing, meaning walk around in the mall, whether they're making visits to the high schools, whether they're on the phones making cold calls to these, kids, even on social media, reaching out, going through like yearbooks and trying to find numbers. Like they were doing it all to make it happen.
Mm.
And, they face a lot of rejection. And as human beings, that's unnatural to us, right? I compare it to like when you were younger and you saw this girl that you really liked, and that nervousness of asking her out, right? And just going up to her
Yeah.
and say,
Yeah.
hey, you want to hang out sometime? But then that fear of rejection, especially when she does say, no, I'm good. And you're like, heartbroken, right? They deal with that every day. And that's the difference between the being on the depot and then being in the streets, right? Like on the depot,
Mm.
these drill instructors, although amazing men and women, right? These kids will do anything and everything you tell them to do. Instant obedience to orders, right? That's what we were taught as candidates, and that's what we teach these recruits too. And the difference is that out on these streets, these kids can tell you to go fuck yourself, and there's nothing you can do about it. And sometimes
Right.
we got parents that tell you to go fuck yourself. You're not talking to my kid. My kid's nervous serving in the military, this, that, and the other. And there's nothing you can do about it except try to overcome that disinterest by using the Marine Corps consulting skills that you're taught at basic recruiter course, and try to sell the Marine
Yeah.
Corps to these kids and to these parents. So, these recruiters are it's by far the hardest SDA, the special duty assignment that the Marine Corps has. And I have both ribbons now, so I can say, like, seeing both worlds, recruiting is definitely the hardest. And you have a lot of social media influencers and stuff that say that that's not the case, but they only got one ribbon. It's usually the DI ribbon, and yeah,
Yeah.
recruiters are out there making it happen every day to make sure that the depots are stocked with fresh young men and women to carry on the legacy of our Marine Corps. Amazing individuals.
What comes to mind is, so my first experience of Marine Corps, and when I went to the Citadel, you had to pick a branch to have ROTC, for the 4 years that you're there. And, they got, obviously Air Force, Marine Corps, Navy, Army. And so, everybody, and I did Air Force ROTC because I was like, that's, I'm gonna be a
Hmm.
pilot, Air Force. But then the
Right.
Marines up there is like, it was classic Marine. Like, I'm forgetting the guys, the major at the time, like square jawed, guys in his Charlies. You're just like, I think he had the same, we're not going to promise you a bed of roses, that, and he was just like really curt, quick presentation. And then it was like, like if in my mind, I'm like, if the Air Force doesn't work out, maybe the Marine Corps, maybe, yeah, maybe. And
Yeah.
how much of when you're recruiting is off this mystique of like, yeah, this is the toughest branch generally to go into. We're going to go first. It's the toughest. Like how much does that draw people in? Like, and like what's the pitch when you're chatting with people in that sense?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the selling points of the Marine Corps. It's one of those intangible things that we have that hey, it's going to be the toughest. We're not going to promise you anything. We're not going to offer you a bunch of money. We're not going to give you an Xbox or a PS5 like some other branches are doing, probably out of desperation, right? But we are going to
Yeah.
give you the opportunity to be a United States Marine, and it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be hard. Do you have what it takes? We don't need you. We're offering this to you, right? And it's an absolute selling point. I would say nowadays, the intangibles, although still important, you know, we're kind of having to get into the tangible things like the money and the guaranteed, MOS or whatever, because recruiting is difficult right now. But for the most part,
Yeah.
the challenge of being a United States Marine, you know, becoming a better leader, doing something that's hard, but makes it worth it at the end because nothing is being given to you. It has to all be earned. Like those are the things that appeal to this to younger generations in general. Like it's been a
Yeah.
selling point for since the beginning of the all volunteer force,
Yeah.
and that's why you
Yeah.
saw those commercials back in the day with the dragons and climbing the freaking rock face and all that stuff. It's cool. It appeals.
Kind of switching topics for a second, just because I thought it was interesting you brought that up. So I've seen in social media, and there's even a company that is basically, it's some type of online gaming community, and they're saying like, hey, we're using gaming to help prevent veteran suicide. And I think that's kind of like, listen, I listen, man, I fucking gamed and I love gaming. Like I do. And, like not as much now, but I
Yeah.
think this is like an interesting double-edged sword because it has the potential to build community, have that online, but then it's
Mm-hmm.
also super addictive. And there's a time suck. There's things in there that I think I've even lied to my wife about when I was gaming, and I'm like, she caught me, and so it's like, oh yeah, this is.
I don't mean to laugh, but that's funny.
So I'm like, yeah, maybe this is a issue. And so it's just like an interesting double-edged sword, and it's kind of like, how are you trying to solve veteran suicide with something that's addictive and can lead down a bad road? But it's like, but there is community in it, so it's like an interesting balance. And so I'd love your take on that.
Well, the Marine Corps actually has a gaming team. I forgot what the actual official name of it is, but there
Oh,
was
interesting.
a MARADMIN that came out, a Marine Administrative Message that came out looking for solicitations to be on this all Marine gaming team. And I think they compete like on Twitch and all these other platforms, and they do all these events, right? So the Marine Corps is embracing the gaming world and community. And it's also a ploy to recruit as well. Like, because now recruiters going to say, hey, you love gaming? Well, guess what? The Marine Corps has an all Marine gaming team or whatever it's called. Just like people that love sports, like you have all Marine
Yeah.
basketball and football team, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, I think that embracing other means or mediums to be able to curtail this epidemic of veteran suicide, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
And you're right, gaming can be very addictive, absolutely. But I think for most of us who grew up, gaming, like I got my PS5 right there, man. Like but I play it maybe once every month or two.
Mm.
I think we also know how to kind of check ourselves in a way. I really do. I really think that we are able, as some people that have served or are serving, to be able to kind of like you know get to a place where we're like, hey, well, I'm doing this too much. I need to kind of back up a little bit. And if you have it as a community, then you can check on each other, right? So I think that could be. I mean, if this is indeed something that a company starting up to help veterans, I'd be all about it
Okay, that's an
because
interesting
it builds
perspective because
camaraderie and a team environment.
yeah, because I have like the other side of it where I'm like I see that they could be helpful, but so I guess I feel like it's like taking, hey, I need to focus, so I'm going to take Adderall, or I need to sleep, or I'm going to take Ambien,
Mm,
where both of
gotcha,
those
gotcha.
have, some real fucking bad side effects that you don't see
Yeah,
till later. So yeah, I know that like, cause I've, when I was younger, college, like I gamed a lot, like through the night, sacrificed my sleep and different things. And so I guess I see
yeah,
now I have,
yeah.
I don't know, like as a 42-year-old man, I'm like, now I have the tools to limit myself.
Right.
Where maybe 20 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I didn't. I mean, so yeah, that's where I feel like it's an interesting balancing act. But if again, that it could work. Yeah. So yeah, so I was thought that was interesting because I know that's an interesting that gaming in the Marine Corps, man. That's wild. So yeah, for how we kind of got off track there for a second. What else? What else am I got here? Let me see. Yeah, so I think those experiences from those past two roles, I mean, I almost wish I had experiences like that when I was in the Marine Corps to like have that much, I think, responsibility, that influence over, to be able to like, touch that many
Yeah,
souls, Marines in shape.
yeah.
So that's super unique experience that I think you probably look back on that for the rest of your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. The three best times of my career were, like I said, Afghanistan in 2010, and then being on the depot, and then being on recruiting. When I was just doing my job as an administrator, not fulfilling at all. Even now, like just being a G1 and being in charge of admin for a logistics group of 8,000 Marines and sailors. It's a job that I'm thankful for, right? I am thankful to be in this position, but I've gotten to the point where it's not what I'm passionate about anymore. It's not as fulfilling.
Yeah.
Um, Having those 25, 30 Marines that are in the G1 with me, that fills my cup every day. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, that's what I still put the uniform on, every day that I go to work because of those Marines and because of the Marines that we support. Because
Yeah.
my love language is service, and it fills my cup when I'm able to help people. But now I know that now it is time for me to move on and do something else and
Yep.
grow up, I guess, from out of the Marine Corps and back
Yeah.
into the civilian world and fill my cup some other way. So,
What's your I've come across this question now as I've been doing this show. What's your philosophical operating system? How do you think about things? Because you mentioned stoicism, leadership. So how do you do that in the Marine Corps right now?
well, stoicism for the hats, for the drill instructors. Yeah, I am not stoic by any means. I do read Ryan Holiday and things of that nature. The obstacle is the way,
Yep.
but I am not a stoic. My leadership style is just to be completely genuine and real, professional, but also be vulnerable. I believe that vulnerability is, you know, a leadership trait that a lot of Marine officers are scared of. And it's not a leadership trait per JJ did tie buckle, right? But I feel like it is one because Marines can read right through people. But when you keep it real, when you're vulnerable, when you show your human side, I think that you make a better connection. And to be vulnerable, you got to be able to be honest about your fears, your flaws. and then also just being able to make mistakes and letting people know that it's okay. Because in the Marine
Right.
Corps, it's a zero defect mentality for the most part, and I think that's where we get it wrong. Someone
Yeah,
messes up one time
I
and
was
it could
just about
potentially
to
end their
say that.
career.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, fears, flaws, faults, and failures. Those are the four F's that I am able to express comfortably. Just like when I talk to the Marines, I let them know about my mental health struggles as well. Like, hey, I need you to go get help if you feel a certain way. Even though I've dealt with depression and anxiety for 16 years now, like I still have a TSSCI clearance. I've commanded twice. Like I'm a lieutenant colonel in the United States Marine Corps. Like if you do things the right way and you get help and treatment the right way, the Marine Corps is not going to punish you for it, right? But if you go and do things the wrong way, like say try to have a suicide, or if not try, excuse me, if you have a suicidal ideation and you tell someone and you go to the ER and they put you in the mental health unit, that kind of starts a process where you may not be able to recover from.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So
So
what's the right way? Or the path that you've taken, as like I guess just what's the path you've taken if it could be a blueprint for somebody else?
coming back from Iraq in 2009, I was very stressed out. And then we found out we had to go to Afghanistan literally in April. We came back December '09 and we had to deploy in April of 2010 to go to Afghanistan. That's 5 months, right? Like, and we had to do a complete workup. So we had to do all the exercises that took us a year to do in 5 months. And my XOs were riding me like Seabiscuit, like, just like, holy crap. And it came to a point before the battalion deployed from Hawaii to 29 Palms to do Mojave Viper, as it was called back in the day. I had to tell the XO, like, sir, am not doing too well. I told him that I had what I now know was a panic attack in my office one day by myself. Out of the blue, I just started shaking, and then all of a sudden I started crying uncontrollably. This was probably like at 6:30 at night. After most everyone was gone, I was trying to catch up on work, um, and I just broke down, man. And I had to tell my boss the next day. Luckily, I had a boss that was understanding. He's like, "Go talk to the regimental psychiatrist." So I talked to the regimental psychiatrist, and I told him what's going on. Did the evaluation thing. He's like, "Yeah, sounds like you're dealing with depression and anxiety." I wasn't able to go with the battalion to 29 Palms, but that month that they were gone, I was able to really focus on myself more. I was medicated. I was put on Zoloft. I do remember that, but it helped. And then, I was able to deploy to Afghanistan after that. And when I came back, I started getting help. Not only was I seeing the psychiatrist, twice a month, but then when I came down to San Diego again, I decided to again get help. Got help from the psychiatrist there on MCRD. Started seeing a social worker out in town once a week. I did that for like 3 or 4 years, and that really helped.
Yeah.
All documented, no issues. Like it's just going forth and asking for the help, through the chain of command or going to medical and just saying, "Hey, this is what I'm dealing with. I need to get help." And yeah, I think that's the right way rather than taking a dramatic or drastic turn as a cry for help. And that's why I continuously tell these young Marines, like, hey, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. You got your staff NCO, your OIC, whoever, or, your roommate or whoever it may be, but just get the help. Set up an appointment with your primary care manager, say you need a referral to mental health, and sit down with a psychologist, psychiatrist, or social worker and start dealing with these underlying issues that you're going through.
Yeah.
And then the Marine Corps of that.
Um, did that, and so you don't think that affected your ability to promote in your career I mean, I guess not. Because I think is there a stigma, but I guess it's twofold. Maybe there's a stigma that
Yes.
there is and that it depends on your leader too, right? Of like who you're going to. If you don't respect the person that you would have to tell, I'm not gonna fucking tell that guy because I see how he acts when anybody has weakness. So I'm not gonna tell that guy.
That's it, bro. No, that's it. You're absolutely 100% correct, man. If there is no trust and confidence in that leader, to be someone that you can open up to and legitimately tell your issue to, then that already is an obstacle that is going to be difficult to overcome. And that's why I tell the staff and sales I work with um, that, hey, you need to be open about being able to, um, or you need to be available to the Marines about things of this nature and allow them to talk to you and make an environment that is conducive to having, grown up conversations without, judging or telling someone how messed up they are just because they're trying to seek help.
Yeah,
I'm only one person, but I definitely try to be the change that I want to see in the world. And that is definitely the change that I want to see in the Marine Corps is uh,
yeah,
with a lot of senior leaders being able to allow these Marines to talk to them about what they're struggling with. So that way they're not doing something drastic as a cry for help. Because if you knew the amount of suicidal ideations that I see on a weekly basis, just in my command, well, it wouldn't surprise you, right? Because you're a Marine, but nonetheless, it's mind blowing. And
yeah,
these are cries for help. And these are all young Marines, man. These are Lance corporals, PFCs that are doing this stuff. And it's a cry, it's a drastic cry for help. So where was it? Where was somebody at when there were the signs there? And that's why I'm always engaging and asking, like, "Hey, you okay? You look a little bit down. You want to talk about it?" Kind of thing. But you don't see many people of my rank or anything like do that
right.
because we're so focused on getting promoted or whatever that we don't take time to look at these sometimes
Yeah,
subtle signs.
yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I look back and I feel like, man, I was, in my own world half the time in the Marine Corps, just trying to do my thing, my,
Yeah,
pilot job, ground job, like, make sure I look good and all that stuff. And I look back and like, oh shit, and that's interesting because I came across there's a female Marine V-22 pilot who
okay,
I believe recently got out, and she was on a show called Urban Valor, and she talked about her experiences through, and this is
okay.
brand new if you look it up, but her experience and and struck me because she was Marine officer, female V-22 pilot out of Camp Pendleton, and she had talked about multiple times where she's like driving, thinking about just driving, on the bridge. She's like, maybe if I just turn off the bridge, thinking about that, killing
Oh
yourself,
wow,
like, and then she's going into work and, kind of then flying and then like, okay, get over it. Okay, I'm good now. Let's go fly. And I'm like, I mean, I didn't operate that way. I don't operate that way now, but it was something, it was kind of like, fuck, dude, I'm in my
yeah,
own world and I should be more. It just has made give me like this hindsight. I was like, man, should have been, and am now more present for like not maybe looking for that, but more cognizant of people's struggles because it's they're out there, and it's like
that's it.
it's so I was just kind of blown away because I'm like, well, this person should have other shit together, right? It should be, and you like, but they cover it up so well because they put
Yeah,
a
man.
mask on or and they know that
Yep.
if they're ever like, from my experience in the Marine Corps, the leadership, most of the leadership that I experienced was like, if you put your hand up, it'd be like, got you, motherfucker, and it's almost as if it was a prize for them to get somebody off,
Mm,
get them out. And so
that's unfortunate.
yeah, so that's why nobody would raise their hand.
Yeah, I am. So my experience with pilots was my time with the Mush.
Yep.
We were actually there together for a few
Yep.
months, right? you doing an investigation and all sorts of stuff. But that was my experience, and I could see how, because the one of the I believe it's a disadvantage that pilots may have is that your training pipeline is so long that you're like already like a captain before you really start dealing with Marines.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also, a job that is, in my mind, it's like high risk, and you've got to focus on your instruments and what you're doing to make sure that you're getting this aircraft to where it needs to be and back. Am I saying that y'all don't really think about the G Marines? No, but you also have a lot on your mind. And maybe that could be the reason why you weren't able to really to see some of these subtleties or some of these things that the Marines were going through.
Yes,
So, I mean,
I
I
think
guess
that's well
I'm
said.
trying to make an excuse for you, but it makes sense to me why it's like that. So I don't know how to fix that in terms of like your community, because that's difficult. Because I do want the best pilots out there, and that takes legit training time, you know, at Pensacola, at Corpus Christi, wherever you may be at, right?
Yep.
To be able to do that. And, but it also takes away from the opportunity to get to really know and deal with junior Marines as a young officer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can definitely understand that. Now, as far as this V-22 pilot you were referring to, that's very, very sad. I'm glad that she never took that,
But
that recourse, right?
yeah, but I think it was kind of eye-opening to me of that. I'm like, you could be walking, and your chances are your interaction on a daily basis with Marines, they're guys and women that are stressed and depressed and like they're contemplating that.
Yeah,
Chances are like 100% if you interact with five or more Marines that it could be something like that. Or, I don't know the statistic, but something like that where they're suffering and they're putting a mask on and they're hiding whatever issue they have, and that goes back, and I think that's back to the vulnerability, as you said. It's like
yeah,
that is a fucking strength, and then that comes back to being like authentic with like who I this person right inside here. Stoicism, that's being authentic, and then that's how you create camaraderie and like good leadership. Like, so somebody struggling, right, who may have taken their own life would be like, hey, this guy's vulnerable, so this guy's authentic, I'm going to come to him and be vulnerable myself. And then you like and then you like potentially solve the problem and then make a better person in perpetuity, like pay it forward, like the ultimate style of pay it forward.
yeah, absolutely. And like, personally, what I do as a leader, I do a few things. The first thing I do is whenever a new Marine checks in, or whenever I get into a new unit and I'm in a leadership position, the Marines that I'm responsible for, we're going to have one-on-ones, and I'm going to talk to you. And this is not, it would not be a, Lieutenant Colonel Maturin to, you know, Corporal, Blake conversation. It would be just a Lamberto to Blake conversation. And we're behind closed doors, and I want to hear your life story. So you're going to tell me your life story from the very beginning, like, hi, my name is Blake. I am from blah, 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 all the way till now. And then I'm going to share with you my life story. And we're going to get to know each other as human beings. I'm going to get to know your hobbies. I'm going to ask you about your family. I want to know your wife's name, your kids' names. I'm going to write it all down. I'm going to have it with me, and I'm going to try to remember that. And then you hear my story and you see, well, we probably have a lot in common, actually. Or if not, like either way, you still get to know who I am and where I came from, right? And that's in itself some vulnerability there. On top of that, I'm always going to, when I see you, I'm going to ask you about something that we talked about, or I'm just going to ask how your wife is or how your kids are to kind of build that rapport. And then also every Friday, when I give a safety brief, we're going to go over some life lessons and we're going to talk about something. It's not just don't drink and drive, be safe. No, we're going to talk about something that matters and that can help you not only as a Marine, but as a human being. And I always tell people that they're valued, needed, and loved. That's my thing because it's the truth. You are valued, needed, and loved. Like you have somebody out there that needs you. Like your kids need you, your wife needs you, right? They value you, right? And they love you. Whether for me it's my mom or my brothers or my sister, but there is somebody out there, right? And we have to keep reminding people of that. And it's gotten to a point now, like yesterday, as a matter of fact, I came into work and one of the Marines was like, "Sir, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Wait, what do you mean am I okay?" She was like, "You just don't look, as happy as you normally do. I just want to make sure that you're okay." So how many, and this is a PFC asking me this, right? How many PFCs would ever ask a lieutenant colonel, "Hey, are you okay? I'm kind of worried about you." Not many, because most PFCs would never even talk to lieutenant colonel, right? Because you know, I know I wouldn't have as a PFC or a private, but that's the kind of culture that I am trying to build in my shop so that we can have these honest conversations. And I ended up telling her, "Hey, thank you so much for asking. Actually, I do have some stuff on my mind right now, right? And that's why I wasn't, my usual self when I walked in, but actually I am doing okay. But thank you so much for asking me." And that's what it's about, bro. Like, if we can get all of us, regardless of rank or status or whatever it may be, just to say, "Hey, are you okay? You look a little bit different today," just to
Yep.
make sure, right? Like, that's what we need because we can open up to each other. And
Right.
yeah,
So, and I think that just what came to mind there is like when a senior leader is vulnerable like that, I equate it to like, because again, I would say 60 to 70% of my leadership were
hmm
bad. Just leave it at that. Maybe mediocre.
I'm
We'll
sorry
call
to
it
hear
that.
that.
And it's okay. And and I always look back as weird whichever situations are happening in the ready room, what's going on, and I'm like, did these guys not like read the leadership books or understand any type of philosophy? Or I'm just like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is going on? And because like and these leaders would turn. So we had in a squadron, you'd have COXO, and then there's like as you're saying, captains, and it's like 25 something, 30 captains, more or less. And, and that's kind of how the squadron works, different from, infantry platoon and other units.
Yeah.
And these guys, these poor leaders, will say, these Marine officers with poor leadership skills would stay and do things and basically turn all of the company grade officers against them in a way where you're like, I can't trust this guy. And I'm like, I'm gonna have a hard time listening to him and following his
Mm.
orders because he's a hypocrite. He has a
Mm.
hubris just oozing out of him, et cetera, et cetera. And then, on
It's
the opposite
unfortunate.
side is like, if this guy would have been like you, as you're describing, then all of his Marines would literally die for him, unquestioningly die for him and follow his orders to the T because they know that that they would at least think
Yeah.
that this guy
Yeah.
is operating with this radical transfer and truthfulness and honor and integrity and vulnerability, and like I can trust this
Yeah.
man and I will do whatever he says because I know in my heart it's the right thing. And that's kind of what I thought, and I'm like, these guys, how did these guys not know this? Like, now whenever this guy says something, like, I'm gonna question this because I go back into being an officer. You're like, hey,
Mm.
my duty is to the Constitution. And then, I go into that as like, it's not to follow your order blindly, motherfucker. It is to the Constitution. And so I'm going to question that. So, and I equate that to like, a Marine is like, hey, charge that pillbox in open terrain, and they had, like,
Yeah.
just figure it, go. And I'm, when I have the good leader, you're like, well, I figure he's thought about all the options here and that's the best one. Fucking going. But when I have the other guy, I'm like, all right, I'm going to figure out a different way to do this because I'm definitely going to die. So I'm going to flank it, do something like that. But I think that that's the idea when if more guys, more leadership would understand that,
Yeah.
then like the cogs and how everything would work, it would work better.
Dude, yeah. Thinking about everything you're saying, like it's cookie cutter from what I've heard other pilots tell me about their leadership. I would say the most complaints that I've heard in my career as an officer when it comes to the chain of command and commanders in general have been from pilots. I don't know why that is. I can make a hypothesis, and it could probably be from the fact that you guys don't lead until you're senior, like captains or whatever, right? So that
Yeah.
experience is limited. I don't know because I've also seen some phenomenal, squadron commanders in my time or group commanders. But I don't know. Like, yeah, I've heard that before. Like
Yeah.
hostile work environments, narcissism. Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. And in the way I think the Marine Corps has the best way of picking commanders. I really do, comparatively speaking to other services. It is arbitrary though. It's an arbitrary board with people that are reading records that are written in an arbitrary manner, and they're just opinions from these other dudes and dudettes that observe you do your job. And by observe, it's just like, well, I see you, maybe once a week or whatever, and I barely even know you, but I'm going to write all these
Yeah.
things about you because this is what your direct supervisor is telling me that I should write, right? But I do think that it's still a better process than most, because it's about how you look on paper and not how you actually comport or conduct yourself with the Marines. Now, the Marine Corps is going to gravitate to 360-degree evaluations, meaning not only does your superior write on you, but also your contemporaries and then your subordinates will also provide opinions on your leadership. Is that going to work? I hope so. The biggest piece, though, is are people going to be honest? Because unfortunately, for some people, it's likership and not leadership. Like, I got to be careful what I write because I want this person to keep liking me. Or, he's my friend, right? Instead of being objective and honest. But yeah, man, like I said, I'm
Well,
sorry because we have a
no,
retention problem, and a lot of it has to do with that leadership piece that you're talking about. And I'm assuming that's part of the
and
reason
it's,
you got the fuck out.
yeah, and there was, it was more of just a, a, a thought exercise on that experience. And again, that goes back to what I was saying before. It's like that tempered me, like I see that now, having some hindsight. I saw some of those things then, and I see that now hindsight, and I'm like, this problem can be fixable here. And it's more of
Yes.
like to
Yes.
illuminate and go like, hey, there's a problem, let's fix it. Let's talk about, hey, you suck at being a leader right now, so you're not like, you're not a fucking king, like what the fuck, this is, and having people give feedback. I mean, it's like you're not the emperor of the squadron and things like that, where you see, that's what I'm
Right.
saying, you see this hubris, and I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing, like, and just, yeah,
Yeah.
the king has a zero defect mentality for everybody. And you're like, well, that's obviously not going to work, in a squadron and different things. It's certainly when most of the enlisted Marines are under the age of like 24, in San Diego.
Yeah.
you, you know, so, but yeah, it's
That's
just
Marine Corps wide, brother. We got the youngest branch in the service.
exactly. So
So
it's like there has to be this deference for like, hey, guys are going to fuck up. They're going to make mistakes. And we're like, hey, so that's not, you're not going to kick them out for that reason. Get the fuck out of here. It's like, hey, you made a mistake because you're young. How are you going to recover from this in the Marine Corps? And how are you going to do better? So,
no, absolutely, man. Like I got a Marine that I works with me, a Marine officer, and this officer made a mistake when they were, a second lieutenant, and it was an integrity thing. This Marine is going to, be separated from the Marine Corps because they made this mistake.
yeah,
But I received this Marine from the previous unit where she made the mistake at, and this Marine has been with us for 8 months, and they have done absolutely phenomenal work. Like amazing, part of the team, part of the family, looks after the junior Marines, provides advice, gives training classes, all sorts of stuff. Right. I want to put this Marine in for an impact award for the time that they've been with the G. But there are people of the mind. Even though I'm a lieutenant colonel, I'm not a commander, so I don't have awarding authority. So I can't like write it up and sign it, right? I have to give it to the battalion commander to do that. But there are people that are of the mind that this Marine is getting separated from the Marine Corps, so we cannot give this Marine an award. But I'm like, so even though this mistake was committed in another unit, and I'm trying to recognize this Marine for the work that they did during this 8-9 month period that they were with us,
Yeah.
where they conducted themselves to the utmost manner and did all the right things and performed to the best of their ability. But you mean like because of what they did before, that negates everything that she's doing now, right? And that's just not right. And that's why Marines get the fuck out. And that's why we have a retention
Right.
problem in the Marine Corps. Because of that zero defect mentality, and because we are so scared of doing things because we feel like we're going to piss off our boss because, I want to be a general officer or I want to get promoted more. So, like, and they're trying to play this game. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Remember where you came from because you were a lieutenant at one point. And the only just difference between you and that other Marine is that you didn't get caught. Because I guarantee you did something that may have been questionable during your time. And if you're here to tell me like I never made a mistake or I never did anything bad when I was,
You're a
a
liar.
Marine, like I'm gonna call you a liar because you absolutely did.
Yeah.
Don't condone it, right? But there's been something. It may not have been egregious, but
Right.
anyways, you know what I'm trying to say, man. Like
Yeah.
that's the environment that we're in right now,
Yes.
and that we've been in. And that's another reason why it's time for me to go, bro. Like I can't keep playing this game anymore uh,
Yeah. I
because
was this.
I don't agree with it.
So this is another question for you. This may be, sensitive, but I'm curious to get your sentiment on, the Afghanistan pullout. So, a lot of Marines died in that exit, and obviously very integral in exiting because that's our bread and butter, dude, of securing an airfield, getting people out, doing that. What in general would you say is the Marine sentiment on the exit of Afghanistan in that? And maybe another question, part of this is that it seemed like only one dude got fired, and that was a lieutenant colonel in Camp Lejeune who wasn't even there.
Well, like everybody else that has served was around the Marine Corps at that time. It was devastating, man. Like I was on recruiting duty, and one of the Marines that was killed, Sergeant G, the female, one of my staff NCOICs was actually her recruiter. Like he recruited her out of Sacramento. So it hit home, man. Like, and obviously when you lose Marines, it's like your brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? Like there was a lot of resentment from me for a long time towards, everyone that was involved
Yeah,
in the decision making process, right? Because I think we could have done a lot better. We could have, prevented it some way or somehow. But the more that I look back and think about it, it's like saying like, well, no one should have been killed during the last, 20 years that we were in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, can we really prevent a suicide bomber from killing people? Probably not. I think we could have done better in preparation, but I think there may have still been some collateral damage. Um, I, but I do know that there are Marines, a lot of Marines that still harbor a lot of resentment towards the current administration and towards certain general officers that were in charge during that time because of what happened. I can't say that I'm one of those Marines. I was one of them, but I'm no longer one of them because I think now at this level, I understand more and more what really happens at the upper echelons and how little we could really have done
yeah,
to prevent certain things.
yep.
I don't know if I answered the question, but
No, no,
I mean,
that I
yes,
understand.
the answer is yes to the question of are there Marines that are still upset and harbor resentment? Absolutely. You can go on social media and like
Yeah,
because most of the people that I follow or I'm friends with on social media, they're like, veterans or Marines or whatever. Rarely do I go on Facebook, but when I do, I definitely see their opinions about,
Yeah.
the current administration and in
Yeah.
Afghanistan. The Afghanistan pullout in 2021 was one of those things.
Yeah. I think there's something there for me where the accountability, they go back into the accountability thing where I've seen this where a first lieutenant has a negligent discharge on the range and he's
Yeah.
reprimanded and,
Yeah.
like the general, whatever, and he's promoted and you're like, well, what's up?
Yeah. Because that PFC usually gets demoted and then,
Right.
yeah, no, there's definitely a double standard.
So it's just an interesting dynamic, and I think that that's always been there to some degree. But we that's probably a conversation for another day. I wanted to, but hitting about a yeah. Um, we're hitting about like a little over an hour. What do you have a favorite book or a book you even recently that's helped shaped your leadership style, how you think about things, your philosophy on the world, and
Oh,
anything in general?
I guess the default answer is the Bible. Because as a Christian dude, like I try to live by the fruits of the spirit. I don't know if there's a certain book specifically that I've read that has really impacted that. I think it's just been like experience and seeing good and bad leaders and being like, I want to do that. Or, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm glad I got to know you because now I know what not to do.
Right.
So I don't, look like a whatever with the Marines.
Yes.
But I honestly, I read a lot of books. I'm a history buff, but reading, Killer Angels, Lee's Lieutenants, because even though I'm a black Hispanic dude, like General Lee was actually a really good general, and he treated his soldiers like really well. He was beloved, right? So lessons from him, Callsign Chaos, General Mattis, how he led Marines, how he got, especially on recruiting duty, right? He took an area in Portland, Oregon that is traditionally extremely difficult to recruit out of. And he won our, recruiting station of the year every year that he was there. He made mission every month that he was there. I mean, incredible, just because of the type of leader he was, and the way he took care of his Marines. But he also held them accountable because inherently, I think Marines, we all want to be held accountable when we do something. We just don't want to be, taken to the grinder because of a negligent discharge. We want to be reprimanded, right? But at least give me an opportunity to redeem myself without impacting my future potential for service or promotion.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so yeah, just reading those kind of books, Team of Teens by Stanley Crystal, that was good. Yeah, it seems like every book I read, almost I get a nugget out of it.
Yeah.
I've read Ryan Holiday. I've read, yeah, like right now I'm reading The Civil War by Shelby Foote. That's like a 3-volume series, right? It's like thousands of pages, but it's just seeing the mindset of these people and how they thought and how it's still comparable today is
Yeah.
it's amazing. So
Exactly.
yeah, sorry,
Um,
long answer to a
no,
short question that I really didn't
that was
answer.
that's a good one, dude. Well, I think that being well read is important. Like, what are you consuming? Because that's kind of like something like, the five friends or five people you spend the most time with make up your psyche and who you are. And certainly, the books you read make up, who you are to a degree as well. And like what type of information you taking in, almost that's a tell of a person's psyche. What are they thinking about? Like, are they consuming? I don't watch a lot of sports, and things like that. So it's like you're watching a lot. If that's all you're watching is football or some sports that from football, basketball, all your time. I'm like,
Yeah,
what is your makeup? What is your substance to you? Because if you're consuming that all the time, like you're more giving away your energy, your thoughts, rather than like building and creating this as like an indomitable mind to be anti-fragile,
absolutely.
so you can continue to contribute.
You got to be versatile.
Yeah, Exactly. So, I know this, you still maybe have about 2 years out before you get out, but what do you have any aspirations and any preparation for what you think you'd want to do or where you're going? Or yeah, where are you gonna live or what are you doing, bro?
Well, my ultimate goal is to have a family. Being open kimono, being vulnerable right now. Like
Yeah,
I came off of a pretty bad divorce a year ago. Gotten to a point in life where I'm now able to say that I am back to loving myself, and my confidence is back, and I'm ready to get back out there and start the process of finding a future partner, right? And I
yeah.
want to have a family. That's my ultimate goal. While I'm relatively young, I turn 45 next month, but I'm like fine wine, man. I'm just getting better with age. So, I'm keeping
Yeah,
myself
dude.
up physically, so that way I can be, a provider and a good dad one day. So yeah, that's my ultimate goal as far as where I'm going to live. I mean, obviously living in San Diego, it's always a great thing, right? But I have options. I also am thinking about going back to Panama, where I'm from, and retiring out of there, and maybe even Europe. I don't know. The
Yeah,
good thing about not having any baggage is that I can go wherever I want. Who knows? I may even go out to Bali just to
bro.
test it out a little bit.
I think you would like
But
it,
it's
man.
I probably would.
Yeah,
I
dude.
had a guidance like teacher, a spiritual teacher. His name's Hassani Ade. He's actually out in Bali, and
Okay.
I'm actually thinking about. He's having a retreat in April, and I'm thinking about going out there and seeing what's up. So I'll let you know. But
Dude,
as
yeah.
far as
That'd
career,
be
man,
awesome.
I'm still debating about what I want to do when I grow up. I do like mentoring and coaching. A
Yep.
good friend of mine, his name is Gordon Emanuel. He's a lieutenant colonel. This is a guy that you need to have on your podcast, by the way. I'll send
Okay.
you his info because he's legit. Voracious reader. He's the reason I'm reading more life advice. He's going to be someone that's going to be in the headlines one day for being, a CEO, COO of a Fortune 500 company, or having his own company because that's how good he is. But yeah, he got me into the idea of coaching and potentially starting like a business or something, and coaching, Fortune 1000, COOs, CEOs, whatever about
Yep.
leadership and just the people piece of the leadership aspect.
Right.
Because I'm a people person, I'm in a people business, and I think I have a lot that I can offer to leadership teams in terms of getting through to people. So yeah, so we'll see, man.
Well,
I got a lot
yeah.
of ideas,
Cool.
and we'll make it happen.
Well, I think that that would be unique because there's a lot of coaches out there and leadership consultants that have literally never led anybody. And that's like, right, there's some maybe they're just savants at leadership and they just I'm going to be a leadership consultant and okay,
Yeah,
what have you
yeah.
done? Well, I just feel real good about that this I'm good at this. That's, maybe that's like you got that, but it's like to
Hmm.
have the real experience, to have hundreds, if not thousands of Marines and or recruits and Marines like and just that piece to like have that experience and then couple of like, hey, I'm vulnerable, but I'm also a fucking Marine. And like those, people think that that's like oil and water. That doesn't make sense. Like, but that's the ultimate mixture to understand, like
Well
to
said.
be, to have that,
Well
you
said.
know? Yeah, exactly. All right, bro. Well, I think that covers it. But any last rounds? Anything else to think of or get out there?
I mean, it's been a long time since Canada Fisher and Canada Maturin, man. I'm extremely proud of you and
Oh,
where you
dude.
are now in life and how far you've come. Your artwork, phenomenal. Like what you're doing
Thank you.
here, phenomenal, bro. Like everything that you do is about service and helping veterans and helping those that you care about, and that shows me who you really are, man. And you should be proud of yourself because I'm proud of you. So if you ever need to hear that, give me a call, bro. I'll let you know. Um,
Well,
so thanks for
well,
having
thank
me
you.
on, man. It means a lot to me.
Thank you very much for saying that. And the feeling's mutual, Lamberto. Like I said in the beginning of your who you are and the intensity and the authenticity. nature of who you are is implanted in my mind with, scribe, that word. So, and I think that that is, I told my son that story last night about like, hey, who you having on tomorrow? And I told him about that. And he was just kind of, smiled about that. And I think that lives on in my mind, and I know that there are different scenarios and stories that live on in maybe thousands of Marines' minds. Of that, that is what a fucking Marine is. It's it's intensity with authenticity, and then but there's vulnerability. So,
Yeah,
thank you for being on,
yeah,
brother.
absolutely. Hey, man, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Remember, you're valued, needed, and you're loved, man.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Take it easy.